Hey, welcome back. Today's an exciting day. We're mounting the wings, but we got some decisions to make. And so I will do this one in segments. We got a lot to cover. So the first one's going to be exactly how I come up with where I was going to drill the holes and for the rear mounts. And then there'll be a segment on what was unique to this airplane. So I hope some of this helps. Segment is what tools do we need? We're going to have to clamp that in the back wherever we want to drill. If it moves at all, disaster. So these clamps here, they're very small and they get in there nice and tight, except I had to shorten this and I didn't want to cut it off. So I just tried bending it. That worked great. Of course, vice grips, if you don't want to spend the money on them, the clamps are much cheaper. But this comes in really nice. Put a couple pieces of tape on it and you're ready to go. It says to drill it up in segments in the book, but I've tried that. I was very lucky to have a piece of material that's the same as the rear attachment on the airplane. And what I found is if your hole is only just a little bit, you're trying to take out just a little bit, if you're doing it in too many steps up, that these like to grab like crazy. And so what I found works best for me was I used a number 17 to enlarge it all the way through. I used a 23/64, which in practice worked really good with my 3/8 reamer. And so those are the tools I used. I did end up sanding my reamer down in tests and just taking a thousandths off or so and testing it for what size when it was done that the bolt fit so that it would be. The other thing you're going to need is probably a shim by the time you're done. My shims, I made them square so that when they set in there, if they tried to rotate at all ever, they would hit, there's a little piece and there's a doubler in here, and I didn't want to make them round because I wanted them to be able to stop against something and not want to rotate. So of course measuring tapes, couldn't do it without a measuring tape, but what I found was very helpful was putting a hook on the end of mine because you don't need a certain measurement, you just need it to be consistent and not dropping off. And this hooked right around a cleco in the back or in a hole in the back, and I was able to get the angle of the wings really good by doing this. It was better than the string method because strings I did check it with the string method, but they have stretch. We all know that doesn't work. Now the king of the whole tool thing, I'm gonna have to go on a little bit about this. Anybody that's used a digital scale in the past knows that they're hard to repeat. They just seem to not be repeatable. I just happened to luck out. I was down to Lowe's. So the name of this one is Johnson. It's a 24-inch. It's digital. I have tested it every freaking way I could think of, and it is so repeatable, and it isn't so accurate that you breathe on it and the numbers start moving. It's extremely accurate. It's just not jumpy. So I just love this thing. If you haven't got a digital scale, I don't know how you would go about doing this. If you don't have a digital scale, I think you should get one because it makes it so much nicer to be able to get to the steps that we're going to do next. Okay, let's go over what I did first, second, and third type steps. First thing we need to know is that the rear attachment bracket has a hole in it, so that's where we're going from. That has its edge distance already figured out, as you can see. Just remember throughout this video that my rear spar is going in front of the rear attachment bracket. Yours is going to probably be behind it. But all this plays out the exact same. Okay, thanks to Scott Matthews' videos, they were very, very helpful. Okay, the first thing I would do is on the rear spar, I would figure your bolt size is 3/8. So measuring in from the edge, if you want minimum edge distance, start at 9/16 and draw a line from the top to the bottom. And then later you'll be able to see through that little hole and see where you are on that. One of the things that I did is I ended up making another line for the next size bolt up in case I ever did have to upsize, and I made my another line and wanted to start with that on that line. So I don't know where I got it either. I see in Scott's video that he thought that the wing was supposed to be 90 degrees and perfectly flat across and kind of like this. In Scott's video, it shows that they have the swept back, and he thought it was supposed to be 90 degrees. I also did too, but now I look here and it doesn't show it. I thought it showed it right here. I've seen it somewhere like that, but what I might have done is transferred that 90 degrees for the tail into my head, and I thought the wings were supposed to be straight. I thought I saw somewhere this same 90 sweep, but from the nose to here, and now I can't find it. So maybe that's what we both did. I don't know. So anyway, once I put that line, that second line in for the next size bolt up clearance for edge distance, in case I ever had to drill up again, the first thing I did was set the incidence by putting the level here and checking it all the way down the wing and making sure that I had the wing, but I did it on the other side, making sure that I had the incidence correct. Once I had the incidence right, then I took the rear spar and put that little hole that you could see through that we're going to have to, our pilot hole, and lined it up on this line right here and clamped it down. I took the measurement from this tip to that, to the back, recorded that, and then set this side to identical back here was my third step, and then clamped that off. I was very surprised that the tolerance of that is 50 plus or minus millimeters, but you're able to get it really close once you get this one set, put that one exactly the same, and it is so darn close to being that same there. Then set the incidence also. So you're going to have to fudge around a lot, setting the incidence here and setting that length. And you might as well try to set up your dihedral at the same time by lifting that, get a good average with your string, and get them all. That's where you start messing around, right to left, right to left. And once I got that side set to dihedral also and clamped in, and I've got that side, the right side, all perfect, where I really liked where the hole was going to be drilled, then I just started matching. I'll show you how I match these. On the right side, once you've got the edge distance right, the incidence right, and that will set your sweep back right there. Don't even measure that yet. Clamp that one off, and once you have your edge distance exactly where you want it, that's going to give you how much that measurement's going to be in the back, the angled back to the tail. So as soon as I got that one set and happy, I went ahead and put my string on, raised it up to 85 millimeters over the top of the wing where the string is. And once that wing now, let's say, is happy, it's set, it's what I want to do. Well, you take your measurements off that one, let's say 3 degrees all the way down, and start trying to reproduce it here and start going down and do this angle here over the main spar. Go ahead and top and bottom. I think it ended up mine being 1.6 degrees. Another thing that's really cool about these is if you're going to use it in reference mode, which is zeroing it out to any given angle, just make sure, like if you put this up there and you hit reference and it zeroes it out to that angle, that's no longer a level. So it's going off what you just referenced. It's a great feature. But there's a trick. If you turn it around, you're going to get the wrong measurement. So if you go here, you got to stay like this all the way down. And if you go over to the other wing, you got to stay that way. And the other point to that is, if you set it here and you hit reference, and now that's zeroed out, and you go down and you want to match that on the other side, now you have to turn it around. It needs to be pointing the same direction that you're measuring. You're measuring for the end of the wing, then turn it around for that measurement. But it's a great feature. I just loved it. It worked really well. And later I'll show you how I use that to my advantage. Okay, after all that fudging around and I got that one perfectly where I wanted it, then I go ahead and take that measurement in the back and reproduce it from the tip to the tail on this wing. And just all I got to do is keep moving this one in and out until I match it exactly. Clamp this off. All the time I had just a little pressure on this so that it would still move but not want to move. That was kind of handy. And as soon as I got that, then we went for it. The important part here now that I thought of, because, you know, we're all freaking out that if we screw this up, wow, it's huge. It would be amazingly hard to replace those brackets with those 3 bolts hidden in there. And we're all thinking about that. And so I would say the most important thing is, if you have a gap back here, don't be clamping it up tight. Make yourself your shim. You're going to have to take this apart so many times, and you'll probably have to move it, and you'll get used to the fact that, okay, now I got to go back to getting my 3 degrees incidence and all that. That's going to just happen. It's doing it over and over kind of thing. But make yourself a shim that covers at least the whole ear of, I call it the elephant ear. I think you guys call it the elephant ear. Make sure it's big enough to cover that whole thing, and slip that in. And we'll go over now the 4 things that I asked Rodger and that I had questions in the back of my head, even though we had all this on paper down pat in our head, right? And there were still questions. One of them was shimming. I think here's my top 4 questions for Rodger. First of all, the angle for the front wing, I thought it was supposed to be 0 all the way across. Thought they were supposed to be even. I seen it somewhere. We already talked about that. I can't find it now. So if you guys seen that somewhere, please put a message in the bottom, because I know I'm not crazy, or at least maybe I'm not crazy. So I thought that was, so we were dealing with swept back wings, and he said, yes, it's okay to go a little back. So if you want the less sweep, put the less edge distance for your bolt to be drilled. You'll see when you start playing with it. When you pull that out, that puts the front forward over on the ends. The edge distance for that 3/8 inch bolt is measured from the center of the bolt, 9/16, whatever that is in metric, you can convert it. It's a 3/8 bolt that we're using. Like I said, I upsized to the next bolt and did my edge distance from that, so that in case I ever had to drill it out. Yeah, the rule of thumb is 1.5 times the size of the bolt for the edge distance. Now, another thing I was wondering while we were doing that, he said, don't get it too tight. And I said, what did you mean by that? And he said basically it's got to be in its happy spot. You don't want to be pulling, when you clamp that in the back, you don't want to be pulling that ear forward or the wing back. You want that gap in there filled just perfect. So that's what your shim's for. Mine happened to be exact. I think I've got 40 or 60, no, I got a 60 thousandths piece slid in there. And as it came down and closed the gap, because it's angled, you know, when you lift up, it gets further apart. And when you come down, it gets tighter. And well, that's mine. It's the opposite for yours. For yours, it'll be as you come up in the back, it'll get tighter, but then you'll lose incidence. So figure out, that's one of those things where you're going to have to take it apart and put it back together. A lot of times we do that with airplanes, right? So get your shim fixed and get that in there. Now, he said it's okay to be swept back, not too tight. Let's see. Oh, torque. I was curious because the steel cage up there in the front has, it's sandwiched. And I didn't know if we should just snug that down a little bit. He said, no, put it up to full torque of what it recommends in construction standards. And it is supposed to sandwich and squeeze down on that front bracket. So that covers what I talked with Rodger. It was nice to get his input in each step because this is very nerve-wracking. I deliberately set mine a little higher to 86.5. So when I set that there and it stops wiggling, it's pretty much, you can see. Now let's go to the other side. You can see this side is just a smidge. This side is a half of the string. That's pretty close. That's about as... Once both bolts are in, I pick it up right by the main spar because it doesn't flex at all back here. It's really tough. Remember the tape with the hook. I hook it up here. I just hook it in the hole. And come down, it is exactly 86 and an eighth. Now let's check the other side. Get my big fat hand out of there. I'll just check it. It's exactly 86 and an eighth. It does sag a little. When I make this support, that it'll come into the closer to the 85. I actually don't mind having a little extra dehedral because a more stable airplane for a beginner is the way to go anyway, I think. So we have 5 millimeters in there. We could go to 90. We're at right now, I think, 87. So if we go down to 86, even better. I don't expect it to sag much, but things do settle in. That can compress slightly. It'll be very slightly if it does, I imagine. So now I'll show you. I just used a castle nut, but this is the shim I made, and it did rotate and touch on that doubler up there, so it won't keep rotating or spinning or wanting to make anything become loose. Of course, that's not the nut we're going to be using, but way inside that line for the 9/16, as you can see, it's a little weird getting in here and drilling. You got to make sure you got a drill that'll get up good and tight to that to get the angle right. Hand drilling it worked really well. I'm happy. So now the segment on what is unique to this airplane. As you know, in the past, I told all about what we did with the frame here. Well, one of the unique things was that this is no longer a zero line. It is moved forward slightly, which moved it up in the front. The back is the same as it was. This had to be flexed slightly to get it to fit, and it's all there now forever. But because that is unique, I couldn't zero this out. So what we did is the other zero line on this is this bracket right here. And it doesn't have to. This is where a reference comes in really good. You can hit reference on it. It changes it. Now it's no longer a level. It doesn't level. It references that as 0. So then I could go up here and get this to 3 degrees because my horizontal stabilizer is going to be set at 0 degrees. Some people I hear set them down in the front slightly, 1 degree, to help with lifting a nose of a heavy engine. I'm planning on using the UL but we haven't set that yet. So I could actually set that down slightly if I want to have automatic trim, if I wanted some automatic trim built right in. But that's what makes this CruZer the CruZer. It doesn't have a lifting tail, which is kind of nice because then you can cruise faster if your trims all work out. So that said, that was the thing I had to deal with. Make sure that when you're checking it, if you do use another zero line, that you don't turn this around. Always have it pacing forward. So once you click these into the reference line, I can't say this enough. Whatever direction, like let's say this is front, tape it, say front, whatever you got to do. Because if you don't think of it and you move it around and change and think it's right, it's not. So that said, one other quick thing is I am so happy that I took these off. Look back to Dog Bone if you want to see a video on it. This was just taken off so that I could rivet everything up nice and tight and not have to worry about any kind of twist in the wing during this process. And I still have access with this off to hooking up and putting things in, and then I can simply rivet this up. I've seen guys actually put nut plates in, which is a great idea. I'm just going to end up riveting mine in once I get this to clear, because this wouldn't go on otherwise. I would have to move the wing out far enough to trim it, and that's a lot of messing around. So super glad that I took these off, can trim them now. The other thing is, check, once you've done this, put that piece in that holds the door. You might have to scribe along there and cut some of this off. On mine over there, it's actually pushing it in slightly, so I've already scribed it. And when we get the wings off, I'm going to plane that, cut that out, so that when I put this on and put the hinge in there, that it'll clear the hinge. So those are all the building things that we got to do. It's unique for each airplane. So, man, this was a fun step to get done. One of the best. And if somebody was to ask me what was the worst part of this plane, this was it right here. Stressing over whether or not that was going to move, clamping it properly, having enough room for the drills to work in there, that was very stressful. Luckily, this was a huge benefit. I can't say enough. Don't keep stepping it up, because if you get it where each step up is very minimal, you'll find out that the drill grabs something awful and it won't drill. So let the next hole coming up to your last one, like I did it in 2 steps, and it worked perfectly. And then I had just enough room. Make sure you use the right size drill, that your reamer just takes off enough to true the hole up. From what I've read, I don't know if it matters so much in this. Change the speed of your reamer so that it's slower, but your feed rate, you're going to have to push it in there pretty good. If it's not taking off a whole lot, it'll just go in, clean it, come back out, you'll be ready to go. Thanks for coming along on this one. This was so exciting. I'm just pumped that I got it this far, and now I can go ahead and start, building all the stuff that holds the rest of the wing on. And my wife wants me to get that done. She wants to get her car in here because she had to leave in the rain the other day. So I'm not a very popular guy right now at home. So we got to get this done. No rushing it though. I hope that something in here has helped you with some of the thoughts that you're having before you set your wings. Maybe it sets you in a direction that you can ask some questions to Rodger and get your anxieties leveled down just a little bit. All right, so we'll see you in the next one.